Hoshido, Nohr. Long ago these two nations lived in harmony, but then everything changed when King Giant Ham Not a Villain attacked. Now only Kamui, Master of Face, can stop him. The moment of fate is almost upon us. I've been planning a blind playthrough of this game the moment that it was announced, and now is almost the time to begin. Before I do though, I feel like there are a lot of questions that I need to address, and a lot of things that I want to point out about exactly how this playthrough is going to work. I intend for this video to be both a frequently asked questions for people who've been on my channel for a while, and also a bit of an introduction to new people coming into this playthrough, just as information about how it's going to work. So, let's address the common questions. The first one, by far, is which version of the game will you be playing, and in what order? The short answer is all three. The long answer is that I will be doing both Birthright and Conquest at the same time back to back. Let me explain. I'll be playing through the first 6 chapters normally. Once I reach the decision point, I will then move on to either Birthright or Conquest, depending on the results of something. But from that point on, I'll be uploading one chapter of one route, and then one chapter of the other route. So basically, it'll be like Chapter 7 Hoshido, Chapter 7 Nohr, Chapter 8 Hoshido, Chapter 8 Nohr, and so on. This is also the order that I'll personally be playing the routes as well. I won't record multiple chapters of one route at the same time. Basically, I want to play through both of them roughly at the same pace, just so that I can get a good feel for how different the two of them are. Also, it'll add to the feels factor, as it'll mean I'll be getting to know and train characters on one route, just as they're likely dying on the other routes. It'll also really emphasize just how the characters', no pun intended, fates have changed based on the main character's choice. After finishing both Hoshido and Nohr, I will then be moving on to Revelation, but only then. There is, however, the question of how paralogs are going to be handled. I'm not entirely sure about how that's going to work now. Mainly, I think what I want to do is wait until I've unlocked paralogs on both routes, and then if I do a paralog on one, I will do a paralog on the other right after. I also will not be showing redundant paralogs. If there's a child character who exists on both routes, I'll only show the recruitment of them on one of them. The main exception is the main character's child, who, well, I consider the two genders of them to be different characters, so they will both be shown. This also means that I will likely not be showing any child paralogs at all on Revelation, but again, it kinda depends. If there's something that's really different, I'll show that. Regarding video structure, one other thing is how My Castle will be handled. I originally intended for the My Castle segments that precede every chapter to actually be separate videos, kinda like a Part A, Part B like I did for some chapters in Awakening where the preparations ran on for too long. The main issue here is my internet. For those of you who don't know, I live in Australia. Australia has some of the slowest internet in the entire world. My upload speed is 1 megabit per second, and I have little hope of changing that. Long videos take a very long time for me to upload, and considering that I'm already going to be uploading at quite a big pace when this game comes out, I almost feel like I can't even afford to split videos into My Castle and then the actual chapter, because if I did that, it'd be 12 hours. In fact, sometimes, yes, I'm not exaggerating, 12 hours it takes me to upload a video sometimes, between one part of the chapter and the next, and I really don't want to do that, so it'll depend. If it runs really, really long, I might split it, but otherwise, not. Next question, will you be doing Revelation? I just answered that. Another question, which gender of avatar, aka Corrin, will you be using? Short answer, both of them. Long answer, I'll be starting off with male and going through the first 5 chapters like that. Once I get to the decision choice, an amiibo battle between level 50 Ike and Lucina amiibos that I've been training this whole week to prepare for this, will decide which route the male Corrin sides with. Actually, I'm going to be calling them Kamui because I like their Japanese name better, but oh well. The big thing is, I won't know which side male Kamui goes with until the decision point, so look forward to that because I'll be as blind on it as you will be. The Amiibo battle will be happening in a video for Chapter 6. My main idea there is to play up to the decision point as one video, then have the Amiibo battle, and that will lead on into 2 different videos, one for Hoshidor Chapter 6 and one for Nohr Chapter 6. Whichever side that male Kamui doesn't go with, female Kamui will side with. Both characters will have a different asset and floor combination as well, and I'll be choosing different classes for the 2 of them. Another question that comes up regarding the avatar creation that I've been asked a lot is, will Mary Sue or Gary Stu be in this game? For those who don't know, I have a bit of a running joke on my channel that whenever I play through a Fire Emblem game that has a customizable avatar, I have usually named them Mary Sue or Gary Stu, as is the headcanon of the Morgan that Mary Sue gave birth to. Will I be continuing it into this game? The answer is a big solid no. The main reason for that is, because the avatar is the actual main character this time, I consider them to be their own actual character and not a self-insert. I'm not going to make them a self-insert, I'm just going to give them the default name, default appearance, and just treat them as if they were any other Fire Emblem Lord. Well, for the most part. I have a couple of weird headcanons when it comes to Kamui, but you'll be seeing some of those. Speaking of different genders of main character though, I get asked this question a lot. Do you know that thing about male Corrin and marrying them to a first generation female? Now, I've been trying to avoid as many spoilers as I can at this game. I intend for this playthrough to be blind for the most part, but this is something that I do know. So, from what I've read, there are exactly enough first-generation females to marry off all the males who produce children. Because of this, if you pair a male Corrin with any first-generation female, one child is erased from existence forever. I do know about this. And by the way, this does include Azura. She's not a special case. She's a normal first-gen female. To get around this, I've already planned out who I want male Kamui to marry on Hoshidor and on Nohr. Both characters are Generation 1.5, which is a term that I use, other people call it Corrin Sexual. It's characters who can only marry the main character and no one else, so if you marry them, you don't have to worry about losing out on a child character. Because I really need these 2 characters, unlike everyone else, I have spoiled myself on how to recruit both these 2. The Nohr one looks to be a little bit tricky. I don't know the full context of it, but, yeah, that sounds kind of weird. Anyway, we'll get to that when we get to it. If male Kamui goes with Nohr. As for female Kamui, I'm not restricted by this, so I'm going to pair her with a first-generation character on both routes. Though, who I pair her with, well, I'll leave that up as a surprise. Like male Kamui, I have one prospective husband planned for Hoshidor and one planned for Nohr, but you'll only be seeing one of them. Though the Hoshidor one may be subject to change, because I'm a little bit worried about the localization changing his character. So, if he does turn out to be someone I find really unlikable, I might have to change that at the last minute. The Nohr one I'm pretty much definite on, though. On a related note is this question. Will you be doing the same-sex marriages? No. There are 2 reasons for that. The first is that doing either of them prevents you from recruiting the child of the main character, and in the case of Niles, it prevents you from recruiting his child too. Now, since I want to show every child paralogue, I'm obviously not going to do this. The second reason is that personality-wise, those two are people that I wouldn't have considered marrying to Kamui anyway. Especially Rajat, since marrying a second gen apparently has some pretty severe issues in this game. This leads on to the next question. What about pairings? Will you be doing a pairing explanation video like you did for Awakening? The answer with that is, I've already planned out all the pairings that I plan on doing in both routes. However, like with Kamui's pairings, I'm going to leave you all in suspense and not tell you until I actually get around to doing them. But I will give a bit of a warning as to how I chose my pairings. Normally, how I choose pairings in Fire Emblem games is, I look up the character's supports ahead of time, read them over, and find which is the one that I like the most based on their supports. I couldn't do that this time because I'm playing blind. I have not read any supports for this game at all. With 3 exceptions. They are Laszlo and Odin A, and Male Corrin and Laszlo's Child in both Japanese and English. Those are the only 3 supports that I've been spoiled on. The rest, I have not read at all. So, yeah. I don't know how any of these pairings are actually going to go in practice. I've chosen pairings based on which characters I think would fit together purely on the personalities revealed for the characters in pre-release materials. I don't know very much about these characters at all, and there is a good chance that I'll end up hating some of the pairings that I make based on the supports. The thing is, I'm not going to back out of any of them. That's not what I do. I'm a kind of person who makes a plan and sticks to it. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick to my plans, regardless of how much I end up hating some of the pairings. But I expect to be pleasantly surprised with a few of them as well. Also, due to being blind, I have not looked at the classes of any of the second generation characters, apart from Laszlo's Child and the ones who are already revealed in pre-release materials, which means Rajat and Corrin's Child. In fact, the only thing I know about most of the second gen characters are their names, and other than that, the second gen characters are what I am most blind on out of anything in the game, and I'd like it to stay that way. I do, however, know about some of the Awakening clone children. Other than that, though, I haven't even seen any of them. I don't know what their personalities are like, so I would like to stay unspoiled on them as much as possible. The problem with that is, I'll probably end up making some pairings that pass down terrible stats or classes to the children. That's just a thing that comes with not knowing their classes. So, I'm sorry about that, but this is a blind run, so I'm not allowed to know about their classes anyway. So, yeah. That's going to be interesting for me. And for you, hopefully. One final note about pairings that I will say. I am not doing any incest pairings, adoptive or otherwise. I'm sorry, but I am not a fan of pairing Corrin with their siblings of either route. I just feel that even if they're not blood related, I still see them as Corrin's siblings, and it just feels weird to me to... Well, not just weird, actually downright gross to me to actually pair them. No offense to people who like those pairings, I just personally don't, so I won't be doing any of those. On that note, this leads into probably the biggest question. Define blind. Just how much about this game do you know? This is more of something that I want to clarify for new people to this channel who haven't seen my videos leading up to doing this game. Particularly because a lot of people on YouTube have certain assumptions when it comes to doing a blind run. I certainly got a lot of angry comments like this on some of my Pokemon X blind videos. I feel there are 2 types of blind runs. Game blind and series blind. Series blind is when you play a game totally going into it with absolutely no prior knowledge and you've never played the series before. I know that Fire Emblem Awakening attracted a lot of these kinds of runs, so let me just get this out of the way, this is not that kind of blind. I am a very long-time fan of Fire Emblem. I played every game in the series except for Fire Emblem 2 and 1. I've replayed most games in the series multiple times, and I have several large Fire Emblem playthroughs on this channel. The kind of experience that I'd like to convey in my Fates blind run is the same one that I did in my Pokemon X blind run back when that game came out. someone who's a veteran of a series experiencing a new installment in that series for the first time. That way I can react to what feels different to earlier games, what feels the same, changes that I feel are good or bad, and generally how I feel the game stacks up to the rest of the series. If you're looking for a blind run from somebody who's never played a Fire Emblem game, you've come to the wrong place. There is a difference though between this game and my Pokemon X blind run. You see, that game had a simultaneous worldwide release. This one didn't, which means it was a lot easier to find spoilers floating around the internet. So, how much have I been spoiled on? I followed this game quite extensively in the news up until its Japanese release on June 25th last year. In fact, you can tell I've made a lot of analysis videos of Japanese Famitsu and trailer information. Go and look at all those videos if you want a good idea of the kind of things I know about this game. Also, if you want a good idea of the things that I speculated about prior to its release. Let's see if I was right or wrong about things. After the game came out, I basically avoided as much as I could about the game as possible. And that was very, very hard. I think I've done an okay job at avoiding spoilers. I have frequented the TV Tropes pages for this game to get an idea of how the fandom is reacting to it, but I haven't looked at anything under spoiler tags. I may have unfortunately come across a few spoilers just looking around the Fire Emblem wiki for information that I needed during my Awakening playthrough. That was frustrating. So, be warned, there are a few things I might have been spoiled on. There are also a few things that I technically haven't been spoiled on, but I've pretty much totally guessed what's going to happen at this point. Something that I should warn you about. I'm actually very savvy when it comes to plots. I have a knack for guessing what's going to happen in a storyline before it does. That probably comes with me being a major fan of the Ace Attorney series, where you basically have to do that to beat the game. So if I don't react with surprise to a few story reveals, it's because I've already seen it coming. It might happen a lot. Expect to hear me say a lot of, "Oh right, I thought as much." I'm also not a particularly loud or over-dramatic guy, so don't expect any really huge, giant, overblown reactions or anything. That's just not what I do. There are a couple of things on this game that I have outright and deliberately spoiled myself on. Let me just go over a few of them. Firstly, I know about a certain reveal regarding the Hoshidor royal family. Apparently, the reveal is not really relevant unless you decide to S-support one of them, at least on the Hoshidor route, so I don't consider it that big of a spoiler. Secondly, I know about Odin, Laszlo, and Selena, and their identities. The main reason I know about this is, it's pretty much the only reason those characters aren't utterly hated by the fandom. So, the fact that they weren't made me very, very suspicious, and it turns out that, yeah, they actually redeemed themselves to me. This is the reason why Laszlo and Odin A is the only support that I've actually properly read. I wanted to know exactly how the reveal happened. Seems to only happen in supports, but it was pretty obvious anyway. The other thing that I know about is I have been totally spoiled on every single aspect about Laszlo's child. Their class, their appearance, their personality, everything. Main reason being, they caused such a huge controversy it was impossible not to know, and because I make an effort to understand mistranslations and misconceptions of the original Japanese, because I find those things fascinating, I did extensive research on this issue, so I know a lot about her. I also recently looked at the English supports between her and the Avatar, so there's that. But she and Rajat are pretty much the only second-gen characters that I totally know about their personality and stuff. By the very existence of a Totally Not Tharia, I knew there'd be a Totally Not Gaius and a Totally Not Cordelia in the game. Unfortunately, the official English website of Fate spoiled Totally Not Cordelia's appearance for me, but Totally Not Gaius is someone I haven't actually seen yet, so I'm looking forward to actually seeing them for the first time. And while I technically don't know who their father is, I have a very, very good guess, and I'm pretty sure I'm about 99% right on this. Having said all that, it obviously follows that I know about the existence of the children's system in this game, though that was revealed shortly before the Japanese release, so I don't consider that a full spoiler. However, I have been spoiled on exactly how the children exist and the reasons why they can fight alongside their parents without their parents aging. Admittedly though, official English materials did actually spoil this, so I probably would have been spoiled on it anyway. So yeah, I do know about that. Other than that, English promotional materials heavily hinted at something that's going to happen in Chapter 5, so if I'm not surprised by what happens, it's because the stupid English marketing spoiled it for me. They did this for Awakening 2 with Marth's identity, and I really hate that they did that. Also, somebody in the comments frustratingly spoiled me on the fact that a certain character will die on the Hoshido route unless you have an A support with them. I knew that that happened to someone, I didn't know who it was, and I wanted to remain blind on that, but unfortunately somebody spoiled me. And it was that advice spoiler thing that I really don't like. You'd better make sure to do this, not gonna spoil anything, but just a forewarning, please don't do that, it really bothers me. In fact, I think I'm gonna tell you, just because I've been spoiled on that, I'm sorry, but that character is dying on the Hoshido route. I am gonna make a good effort to use them on the Nohr route to make up for it, though. As far as actual chapter maps are concerned, this is the main aspect of the game that I'm blind on, and I'd like to keep it that way. Really, this is what I'm most looking forward to, seeing all the new chapters in this game, and just the strategic challenges they offer. I have only seen one chapter outright, and that's Chapter 2. That one I watched the Nintendo Treehouse footage of, and because of that, I've gone back and watched that one in both Japanese, fan-translated, and officially localized just to compare them, so I know quite a lot about that map. But everything else, I know nothing about, I've never seen them played, I deliberately avoided watching the other two Treehouse videos because I was told there were spoilers in them. And other than that, all I've seen of the maps is just various little snippets in trailers, and screenshots, although I did look at what is basically a full map walkthrough that's on the Fates website, that's where you're fighting in a desert with windmills and the boss is some bald Myrmidon guy. I have no idea of the context of that chapter though, so that will be interesting to find out. This leads into the question of what does count as a spoiler, and how am I going to be handling comments? Comments on a blind run of a game are always really difficult to handle. Because you can tell people that you want to be blind and that you don't want spoilers, but it almost feels inevitable that you'll either get trolls or people who just genuinely don't understand what your spoiler policy is. So let me make this clear. What counts as a spoiler to me? Anything about the game that I haven't played yet. So, in any video of this playthrough when it comes out, you are limited to discussing in the comments only things that happen in that video itself or earlier. If you discuss anything that happens later in the game, I will give you a warning. If someone does it again, I'll disable comments completely for the next few videos. I hate to make it so that, you know, everyone's fun gets ruined just by a few people, but I'm sorry, that's what I'm going to have to do. I really, really want to stay blind on this game. Also, related to that, do not give me advice. Advice is just as bad as spoilers. In fact, sometimes it's even worse. Things like, you might want to use insert character name here because something might happen soon, or you might want to do this because, not going to spoil anything, but a later chapter might blah blah blah. Please don't do this. I'm sorry if that sounds mean, but the moment somebody gives me advice, the playthrough is no longer blind, and I want to keep it as blind as possible. There's always the possibility that people will find some of these videos without seeing this introduction or any of the earlier videos where I talk about spoilers. As such, I'm going to put this at the start of every video that I make. I'll put a sound effect with this too, just to catch people's attention. Hopefully this means that anyone coming to these videos, no matter when you join, will always know that I don't want any spoilers, and I don't want anything later than that particular point in the game discussed in comments. Hopefully, this prevents people from posting spoilers. I know it might not, but I think this is my best option. The other option is disabling comments entirely, and I feel that that's not fair to all the people who follow this channel. This next question is similar and relates to my general level of experience with the series. what difficulty and mode will you be doing this playthrough on? And this is gonna sound kinda weird, but let me explain. Hard casual. Now, I normally don't like playing on casual mode. Even when I do, I usually restart when I lose someone anyway. I never play on because it just feels wrong that way. I'm used to playing Fire Emblem in a way where you restart the chapter when someone dies. That's how I've always done things. But while that is how I always play my Fire Emblem games off camera, I feel that as a live blind run, resetting that much would just not work well. If I was playing the way I normally would, I would be resetting these chapters a lot, considering that I'd never played them before, so I don't know what to expect. That doesn't make for a very good viewing experience, because the moment that I reset a chapter, my run of the chapter is no longer blind anymore. And there's no way that I'm just letting people die. It's just not in my playstyle. The only time I've ever not reset when someone's died is my very first playthrough of the first Fire Emblem game I ever played. I have never done it since then. I always get to the end with all characters alive or not at all. Plus, I want to show every power log on both routes, so I need everyone alive anyway. Because of that, I felt like the best way to do this is to actually play on casual, and simply keep playing on if somebody is forced to retreat. That means that I'll still have to make an effort not to lose people though, because especially on the Nohr route, having somebody retreat from a battle is going to heavily handicap them for future maps. They're going to lose all remaining chances to get experience in that map, and all remaining chances to gain support points. So yeah, I'm still going to be very, very careful of people, and it will be very crippling to lose someone. Regarding hard mode, really I feel like that's the main difficulty that's suited for me, though I've heard that hard in this game is harder than Awakening's hard mode, and if hard Nohr gets too much for me, I can always turn it down, but I am kinda confident I can handle this. I at least hope I will be able to. But there is always the option of toning the difficulty down during the game if it's too much. I really don't think I'm going to have to do that on Hoshidor though. From what I think, I'm pretty sure that hard Hoshidor is going to be fine. I guess on a related note, how will supports, pairings, and children be handled on the Nohr route? I just said that I intend to show every power log, but from what it seems like, you can't really use everyone on the Nohr route like you probably can on Hoshidor, and there's no off-champ to grinding, and in fact my castle skirmishes and things like that don't even let you gain experience. So how will I be handling it? I'll be playing Nohr as I will a traditional Fire Emblem game, that is, mostly focusing on a specific small pool of characters and only using them for most chapters. But I may have to grind up supports for the characters that I'm not using, and also levels as well, maybe in DLC. Basically, the characters that I don't use mostly, if I can get them to an S support during the game, I'll do that. If I can't, just before the end of the Nohr route, I'll try and grind their supports off camera, because I do want to show off every power log. And seeing as a large number of them are Nohr exclusive, oh yeah, and by the way, I do want to do these on Nohr and not Revelation, because there are a few pairing combinations that I feel that I would rather do on Nohr. This leads to another question that I get a lot of: will you be doing DLC and or Amiibo battles? The answer here is maybe. I'm not fully decided on which DLC that I'm going to do and when. I know there are a few DLC ones that I definitely want to do. Those are Hidden Truths and Before Awakening. Definitely doing those two. Everything else I'm kind of a little on. Most of the DLC in this game honestly doesn't appeal to me in the same way Awakening's DLC does. I'll probably cover it eventually, but maybe it might be a bit of a wait. The main reason is I'm already doing, like, alternating between Hoshidor and Nohr as it is, and I feel like going through DLC on top of that would really bog things down. I've seen playthroughs of Awakening get bogged down by DLC before. It really feels like just taking time for a whole episode to go do something totally outside of the main story that doesn't really give you many concrete benefits just doesn't feel like good pacing. And that goes for Amiibo battles too. It also helps that, from what I've seen, the Amiibo battles are quite hard, and you definitely want a high-level party for taking them on. So the answer to that question is, I'll probably be doing DLC and Amiibo battles right towards the end of the game, or after I've done everything. Not sure. Definitely doing Invisible Truths though, definitely doing Before Awakening. Everything else I'm a little on. I will be doing all of the Amiibo fights. Those might be used to grind supports on Nohr now I think about it, because even though you don't gain experience, I'm pretty sure you do gain support points. So yeah, I might have to use Boo Camp on Nohr, but only for characters who I am not using in my main team. Let me get this straight. I am not going to be overgrinding on Nohr because I feel that totally defeats the purpose of the entire route. The only time I'll use that chapter is as a last resort if I really need to get some more paralogs before the end game. So if certain characters just don't have an S support or aren't high enough level by then, and they're not part of my main party, I might grind them there, and then you'll see a blind run of that chapter. But other than that, that's really the only DLC that I'll be doing outside of those two that I mentioned. Another question is, will you be doing character bios like you did for Awakening? The short answer here is no, definitely not. The main reason for this is, Awakening was a fully researched, guided walkthrough of the game, and the character bios were aimed at helping players of the game see what the character's stat specialties were like, and an idea of what skills you could give them through classes. In this game, I consider all of that information to be spoilers. I haven't looked up base stats, growth rates, or reclassing options. Those are things that I want to be blind on. I'm not allowing myself to look up character growth rates until I beat the game. So, if I don't know the character's growth rates, there's no way I can make bios for them. So, there are not going to be character bios throughout the main series. I might make those later after I've done with the game, but for now, sorry, no character bios. And now we come to a question I was dreading. What do you think of the localization, English voices, and the lack of dual audio? Short answer, I don't care. The lack of dual audio is not going to make me boycott the game or anything like that. Really, I see dual audio as a bonus more than anything. The only thing I'm annoyed about it is that I was planning on playing Hoshido as Japanese voices and Nohr as English voices just for flavor, but it looks like I can't do that. That's really fine. Doesn't really matter to me. Something to note though is, because of my avoidance of spoilers, I haven't actually heard many of the Japanese voices to begin with, so I don't have much to compare the English voices to, and honestly I prefer it that way. A lot of the English voices that I've heard so far I actually quite like, especially Azura's singing. Dubbing songs is very, very hard to do, and actually getting one that sounds really, really good is such a surprise. I just love Rena Strober's performance, and I'm really sad that she's getting some flack just for not being the Japanese version. I've listened to the Brawl version of Lost in Thoughts All Alone on repeat a lot. I love that song so much. So, definitely good voice for her. As for a few of the others, I really, really like Silas, and I kind of like Sizor having a really deep voice. Most of the others I'm sort of more undecided on, because I just haven't heard enough of them, really. Felicia I don't think is as bad as people say. Nyx, yeah, she can sound a little bit shrill and high-pitched in battle. Effie, I actually am fine with her voice because I've never heard her Japanese voice, so I had nothing to compare it to. See, the main thing is I just haven't heard many of these voices due to my avoidance of spoilers, so I'll be kind of blind on them and giving my opinions on them as I go through the game, personally. One more thing, when I did my Fire Emblem Awakening playthrough, I did a lot of comparisons between the Japanese version and the localization. I find that quite fun to look at those changes, and a lot of people seem to like that too. Because I'm playing this blind, I haven't looked at anything of the Japanese version of this game, so I can't really tell you much about localization changes. I've heard a few rumors floating around about how things have been localized, namely that Hoshido has been made a little more morally grey than it was in the Japanese version, and I quite like that. But apart from that, I can't really directly tell you how faithful the translation is to the original. And that's gonna be a bit annoying, but, yeah, it's a thing of me playing blind, so I can't really give any opinions on that. What I will say though is, the localization of this game's been getting a ton of hatred, and I really don't like it. I've never really seen people be so vocal about a localization before, and that really worries me. Because of that, please try and refrain from negativity in the comment section of these videos, both about the story, which I've heard is controversial, and about the English localization. You can share your thoughts at the end of the project, because I'd rather make up my own mind on what I think about this game. If I dislike certain things, I'll do that on my own terms, not because people told me I had to dislike them. I don't like being influenced by other people's opinions very much, that's why I generally don't read reviews. So, just bear that in mind, try and be a little bit civil about things like that. If there's something in the game that I end up disliking, I will voice my dislike for it, but I want to make sure that I do that on my own terms. With that done, that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say. So, I guess it's time. Next time, we'll be starting Kamui's journey.